Alrighty. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by Alliant Insurance Services. I am your presenter, Arwen Robinson, Senior Marketing Specialist, and today we are very excited to take you through this presentation of maximizing your open enrollment and how to be prepared for open enrollment and beyond into 2026. Now, as you have questions during the presentation, please utilize the Q&A function. We will have a Q&A period at the end of the webinar where we will address any questions that were not answered during the course of today's presentation. And of course, this presentation is being recorded. If you do not wish to participate in a recorded webinar, please disconnect yourself at this time. Now, quick disclaimer that this presentation is a courtesy service to our clients and dear friends, and it is designed only to give information on developments actually covered, and it's not designed to give a comprehensive summary of recent developments in the law, treat exhaustively the subjects covered, provide legal advice, or render a legal opinion. I am not an attorney, and I am not responsible for any legal advice, and to understand this or how any other legal compliance information affects your unique situation, you should check with a qualified attorney. All right, now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in. So again, my name is Arwen Robinson. I have been with the Alliant team. I think I turned 12 this year, and I'm very excited. I do a lot of employee benefit presentations, and so this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I really appreciate the opportunity and the time to be able to, go over this really important information to make sure that you are ready and prepared for open enrollment. All right, so as far as the agenda is concerned today, we're going to go over some key elements as far as, the differences between qualified life events and open enrollment, how to understand your medical forecast, understanding the differences in the plans, and then also reviewing what sort of important tasks can we expect during open enrollment, and then how can we get help during open enrollment. And so this is really designed to be able to kind of prime your brain for being able to be prepared for that email to come out from HR to be able to, get right in and to make your open enrollment elections. Okay, so first things first, we're going to review the difference between the qualified life events and open enrollment. And so when you are going through the entire year, might have something called a qualified life event. That's going to be something like a big deal thing, something like marriage, divorce, birth or adoption, or an involuntary loss of coverage. An involuntary loss of coverage is if I have my enrollment or my insurance through my job and my spouse has their insurance through their job. What happens if my spouse gets laid off or drops down from full-time to part-time and now maybe they're not eligible for insurance anymore? Those create a qualified life event, and that allows me 30 days to make changes to my benefits. Now, in some situations, some insurance companies allow a little bit longer. If you have a new baby, some of them will allow 60 days. But what's protected under your rights, these are your HIPAA qualified special enrollment rights, is 30 days is what's protected. So make sure that you are acting very swiftly. Anytime you have a qualified life event, that you're notifying your HR team or you're logging into your portal to submit your changes, whatever your action is that you need to take to make enrollment changes, make sure you do that right away. A lot of times when it comes to like a new baby especially, you can pre-fill a lot of information and all you need is the baby's date of birth and the social, for example, to get that enrollment started. And then when it comes to a baby too, it does backdate to the baby's date of birth. And so just keep that in mind as well, that that's a kind of a unique situation, a unique enrollment scenario. Now, there are some additional qualified events that are less common, but we do see them from time to time. Sometimes we will see a court order. This often occurs in the event of a divorce where there is a custody arrangement and there is a court order from a judge on which parent needs to have insurance coverage for a specific dependent. That is something that we see from time to time. Or something that we see a little bit less common is we see dependents who are turning 26 and they are no longer eligible for benefits as a dependent under your insurance plan. It's called their aging out. When they're aging out of the insurance, that also creates a qualified life event for them. We see a lot of adult dependent children will waive, if they have a job, they'll waive their coverage through their work because, well, I have insurance through my parents still. And then when they age out, that is usually the time that we see them hop onto their insurance through their work typically. Now, something to keep in mind is if you have an adult dependent child who is trying to have a baby, maternity benefits are generally only covered for the employee who's enrolled and the spouse who is enrolled. Generally speaking, maternity benefits are not available to adult dependent children. Now, that's going to be very specific to your plan and your contract, but just as a rule of thumb, it's generally not covered, so your situation may be a little different, but just something to keep in mind, something to pay attention to. And so, if you have an adult dependent child who is doing some family planning, they may want to hop onto their employer's insurance sooner than aging out, because then that way they have the maternity coverage and the benefits that they need. There are more qualified events. And so if you were experiencing an event that you think, hey, maybe this is something that would allow me to make changes, you are always welcome to reach out to us. You can reach out to HR and ask those questions, and we're happy to assist you with navigating those situations. Now, when it comes to open enrollment is a very special time of year that we get to make changes to our benefits just because we darn well feel like it. In the insurance business, we call it mom season because you got to say, I told you so. And so during open enrollment, that's a great time of year to make adjustments and changes. You can change what plan you're enrolled in, which dependents you have enrolled. You can add or drop coverage, things like that. And then any changes you make during open enrollment take effect when your renewal occurs. So, for example, if your insurance resets every January 1st, you might go through open enrollment in October or November or even December. And those changes you make during open enrollment take effect that January, as an example. Now, something to keep in mind too is sometimes there are certain benefits that are only available during open enrollment under a certain circumstance. The most common situation we see is life insurance. When you are a new hire and you come onto the benefits, you are eligible to sign up for life insurance typically if your employer offers life insurance coverage. However, if you say no, thank you, I don't want life insurance, and you change your mind and you go to sign up later, that's when the insurance company is going to say, hey, we need to ask, health questions, for example. And so sometimes there are certain benefits where you can only elect an increment. So, for example, if you said no thank you to life insurance previously and now you want to add some life insurance, you may only be able to sign up for 10,000 more in insurance coverage without them asking for, like health statements, that sort of thing. So just pay attention to that. There are certain circumstances where there's a special window where you can elect up to, the maximum for a set period of time. And so those are just the kind of things to pay attention to when it comes to open enrollment and the benefits that are included. All right. The next thing we want to pay attention to when we are going through open enrollment and maximizing our open enrollment is we really want to make sure we're understanding our needs for our insurance for the next year. And so we encourage people to assess what's called their medical forecast. How do they actually plan to use the insurance and what is their expected health needs for this next year? And so questions that we'll, see people ask is things like, we ask them, how do you plan to use your insurance? A lot of people say, well, I just use it for wellness and in case of an emergencies, and I really only have like one or two really inexpensive medications I fill. That's a great descriptor for me. I go in every year for my annual wellness exam. I fill one medication that's free because it's preventive and one medication that's $7 whole at Walmart. And that's about it. And then I have it in case I need it for an emergency. And so that's, really what a lot of us, the category falls into. We also have folks that sign up for the benefits just because they only want to have it in case of emergency. They are like, nope, I'm not going to go to the doctor unless my arm's falling off, but they at least have something in place. So if they do end up in the hospital, that they're not going to go bankrupt from racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. There are other situations, though, where somebody does leverage their insurance quite a bit. Somebody may be managing a chronic condition or taking a very expensive medication. A lot of times I see this with type 1 diabetes where they're using like a Dexcom or the glucometer and they're ordering a lot of supplies. They're ordering very expensive insulin. Maybe they are taking a very expensive medication that they get quarterly, or every 90 days, that sort of thing. And that's not a description of most people how they use their insurance, but that certainly is quite a few people, situation is that they're managing a chronic illness or a chronic condition. And so their expected utilization for their insurance is going to be much different from the person who only goes into the doctor if their arm's falling off, right? Or you might be somebody that like doesn't normally need to use their insurance, but maybe they have a big deal thing coming up. Something like I'm going to have a baby this year. I'm going to have a hip replacement surgery. Something that's kind of unusual, an unusual one and done is what we call it scenario. And so these are all the types of things that you want to have in the back of your head because you want to make an informed and educated decision when it comes to your benefits. Speaking of being informed and educated, we want to make sure we also hit on what are the other things that you need to know, what needs to be fresh in your brain for when you're going through open enrollment so you can make that best, most informed decision. And that is really understanding, having a very strong grasp of these four concepts of the health insurance. And so when we're talking about health insurance, we go through this process where you're responsible for all of your medical bills, some of your medical bills, and then none of your medical bills. And that happens by going through the process where everything is subject to our deductible, we're in coinsurance, and we've hit our out-of-pocket maximum. So let's dive into that just a little bit deeper. So when we're meeting our deductible, that's how much money needs to come out of my paycheck, or excuse me, my wallet, not my paycheck. How much money comes out of my wallet, my bank account, before the insurance company is going to help me out at all. And so if you were in Vegas and you were walking up to play blackjack, for example, this is the ante up. How much money do I need to put into the pot before the insurance is going to start helping me out? If you have not yet met your deductible, you are responsible for 100% of your in-network covered services. Once you meet your deductible, then you are in coinsurance. When you're in coinsurance, think of the word co-pilot. You're co-piloting the bill with the insurance company, and that's where you're responsible for a small percent and the insurance company is responsible for a larger percent. And you do that and you say, Arwen, when does my wallet close? When am I all done? Well, that's when you hit your out-of-pocket maximum. Our out-of-pocket maximum is how much money we pay before our wallet closes for the year, goes back in our pocket, and then the insurance company pays for the rest of my in-network covered services. So again, as we go through this process of deductible, coinsurance, out-of-pocket maximum, we go through a process where we're responsible for all of our medical bills, some of our medical bills, and then none of our medical bills. And then, of course, we have our copays. Our copays are going to be flat dollar amounts that we pay to access services. Often, we see with a prescription that we fill, or maybe it's to have a doctor's appointment. Now, it's important to note that there are some common misconceptions around copays. Largely, that when I pay a copay, that is the cost of a conversation with a doctor. It allows me to sit down with a doctor, have a conversation about my symptoms, and perhaps based off just that conversation, that's enough for them to be able to diagnose and say, okay, here's what we need to do. However, if they say we need to do lab work, x-rays, imaging, MRI, anything like that, that is above and beyond a conversation. Those are services. And so that's where you have to think to yourself, okay, those cost extra above and beyond just my copay. And that's when you have to ask yourself, okay, have I met my deductible or am I going to pay for all of this x-ray? Am I in coinsurance? Am I going to pay for a smaller percent of this x-ray? Or have I hit my out-of-pocket maximum and then the insurance company is paying for all of that x-ray? And so these are the key elements, both the medical forecast and understanding these four key terms that we want to have fresh in your head for when you are making an assessment for which plan you want to sign up for during open enrollment for your medical insurance. Now, here's an example of a plan design. Now, I want to make sure to to essentially walk through like, okay, if we're maximizing our open enrollment, we're making some assessments on which plan I want to sign up for. I want to make sure I'm signing up for a plan that's both going to meet my medical needs, is, something I understand how it works, and it's something that I can afford to pay for per month or per paycheck from a premium standpoint. So one thing I like to call attention to is a lot of people laser focus onto, I need to have the lowest deductible. The lowest deductible plan must be the best. Well, that may not necessarily be true depending on your medical needs. So, for example, if I am going to have a baby this year and I know babies are expensive, I'm going to hit my out of pocket maximum. That's when you need to ask yourself, okay, is the lowest deductible really my priority? Or should my priority actually be to have the lowest out of pocket maximum since I know I'm going to hit it this year? Right? So don't get so laser focused on the lowest deductible when it's really, there's other elements here that we need to consider. Some other things to consider when we're looking at a plan design. So here I have a sample of three different plans. We have a traditional plan one, traditional plan two, and a high deductible health plan or an HSA plan. So when we're looking at this top line, this deductible line, one thing I also want to call your attention to is we can see these slashes here, right, of individual slash family. What does that mean? That means that if I have a family of four and let's say I'm on the traditional plan one, I have a family of four, it's me, my spouse, and my two kiddos, and I get into a car accident. If, the first $1,000 of my medical bills meets my individual deductible, and then I'm in co-insurance. But what happens if we're in a minor fender bender and it's all four of us? And let's say all four of us have $500 worth of medical bills. Well, nobody met their individual deductible, but collectively as a family, we met our family deductible. And so essentially, we can see that an individual deductible is what happens if one person has a lot of medical bills, but a family deductible helps if you have a larger family of three or more people. And then that's when everybody is contributing to a family bucket. So it protects you. You don't want four family members to have $1,000 deductible. You want collectively to meet a family deductible. And you can see that same logic applies, that same mechanism applies for out-of-pocket maximums as well. Now, again, when we consider like, okay, how do I maximize my open enrollment? How do I make sure I'm signing up for the best plan? Something else to consider is as we go down the, services, again, asking ourselves, how do I actually intend to use the plan? It's going to drive a lot of this conversation. So let's say you are somebody who has, again, you fall into the category most people fall into. You only go in for your annual wellness exam, you have a few inexpensive medications, and you want to have something in case of emergency. For a lot of people, the high deductible health plan or the HSA plan works great for that. There are no co-pays on a high deductible health plan. Everything is subject to the deductible and the co-insurance, but you can see here that, on all my plans, I get preventive services covered at 100%. And on this HSA plan, the out-of-pocket maximum is actually the lowest in this example. And so if I were to laser focus on the lowest possible deductible, I would be potentially making a mistake and exposing myself to, thousands of dollars more of worst case scenario. And so if I just want to, keep my worst case scenario as low as possible, that's where this high deductible health plan makes the most sense. Again, if you are somebody that's planning for a big thing, right? I'm going to have a baby or a hip replacement surgery. Again, your out-of-pocket maximum is the number you want to pay the closest attention to. Now, let's say you're managing a chronic condition and you have really expensive medications or you have very expensive tests that you do regularly. That's where maybe the situation calls for signing up for a traditional plan. Maybe you are taking a non-preferred brand name medication that's otherwise very expensive, but you want the protection of a set copay so that you can manage your finances for your medical costs and your medical bills over the course of the entire year. That may be a situation where if you're taking a very expensive medication, that this traditional plan makes the most sense. You also might find that you have a lot of specialist visits and you want to make sure you have a specialist copay. Or maybe you have, again, maybe every year you need a new like Dexcom glucometer and you're buying a lot of supplies for your pump, or you have a very specialized piece of medical equipment that needs to get serviced or, something like that. That's where you might go, okay, I know that I'm going to meet my deductible or I need to have a low deductible, but I might not hit my out-of-pocket maximum. You're kind of in the mush pot, right? Where every year you meet your deductible, but you don't quite have that out-of-pocket. That's where you're going to need to ask yourself, okay, what are the differences between these plans and what is it that I can really tolerate from a cost perspective out of my paycheck, but also what can I tolerate for medical bills throughout the year. This is really designed to help you manage your potential exposure in medical bills. Now, when it comes to open enrollment, there's also some important tasks that we need to make sure we get completed, that we are reviewing and making sure that every year this is something that is up to date. And so we always joke, double check that you have what you want and want what you have. A lot of people forget that they sign up for certain benefits. And so we have people that signed up for an accident policy and then they forget. And then they have something that was an accident, right? So an example being is somebody had their kiddo in our office that fell off the monkey bars and broke their arm. They forgot they had an accident policy. And then during open enrollment, they were reminded, oh, yeah, I have this. And they were able to go ahead and submit a claim to their accident insurance. And so it's just a great opportunity. Just refresh yourself on what benefits are available to you, what you're signed up for, what benefits are provided for you by your employer, things like that. And then also make sure that you have everybody who you want to have enrolled is enrolled. If you have a kiddo or a spouse that you need to sign up or disenroll, this is your opportunity to do so. But I would say, I joke because it's happened, make sure if you disenroll a spouse that you tell them, because then they need to make sure that they know to sign up for their insurance through their work. And so, again, just a good time to make sure that everybody that needs to have coverage has coverage. Another key element is make sure your address is updated. Generally, new ID cards go out from the insurance company each year, and we want to make sure that those are being sent to the correct address. And so this is where any ID cards are going to go, all of your mail for like your explanation of benefits if you're not paperless. So make sure that that's accurate and up to date as well. And then it's also a good opportunity to make sure that your beneficiary information is updated. Because if you have a beneficiary, that's somebody who is going to receive a life insurance payout or like your critical illness payout in the event of your passing. And it is important to make sure that's accurate. In the course of my career, we have seen that a life insurance was paid out to an ex-spouse. I would like to never do that ever again. And the situation was that we had somebody who went through a divorce and then got a girlfriend, and then he and his girlfriend had a baby together, and they were together for many years. But because the ex-spouse was listed as the beneficiary, they were the ones that received the life insurance payout because the girlfriend was not listed as the beneficiary, and because they weren't married, she did not have any rights as far as like community property is concerned. And so that is a very important piece to make sure is accurate, up to date, so that if that were to happen, that it is handled correctly. Another key piece is if you are signed up for a flexible spending account or an FSA, this is a good opportunity to make sure that during open enrollment, revisit your balance, make sure that, as far as the FSA is concerned, that you've spent down the balance that you intended to, that you're aware of if you can roll over any amount from one year to the next. And again, making sure that you're paying attention to your medical forecast. So then that way you know, okay, if I know I'm going to have a baby, I know I want to sign up for the maximum on my FSA, or maybe I had a baby last year and I needed the maximum, but I'm not going to have a baby this year, so I need to lower that FSA so it is an appropriate amount for the year. And then a lot of times we see during open enrollment, you have different rights. We talked about those special enrollment rights for qualified life events. And so every year there's generally some notices that you are made aware of as far as your rights under, the different laws as they pertain to health insurance. And so oftentimes you will be asked to acknowledge that you've received those documents each year. So just some really important tasks to make sure to keep in mind as you are going through open enrollment and just making sure that everything is accurate and up to date. Now, when it comes to getting help during open enrollment, there are a lot of resources that are available to you. And I just want to talk through some of those resources so that okay, who could I go to? Why would I go to somebody? That sort of thing. And so the first resource really is your benefits guide. Your benefits guide is going to have detailed information on your benefits, what the benefits cover, who is eligible, who the insurance company is, how to sign up. There's a lot of really great information in your benefits guide. But if there's information or that you or questions that you have and you're not quite finding the information in the benefits guide, there are more resources available to you. We do have on our YouTube channel, we have a lot of really helpful videos on, different pieces of the insurance, like how to understand disability insurance or understanding the difference between a flexible spending account and a health savings account. So there's a lot of helpful videos on our YouTube channel as well. And then, of course, you can always access either our team or your HR team. And so your HR team is available to assist during open enrollment, but a lot of times we also encourage you reach out to us. We're happy to assist as well. Especially you may have a situation that you feel is sensitive or that maybe you're not ready to disclose quite yet. Those are situations that we can assist with as well. A lot of times we get calls that, hey, I just found out I'm pregnant and I need to understand how the insurance is, going to cover this, but I'm not ready to share with my coworkers about my pregnancy. That happens quite a bit. And so just be sure to, know that you are not alone as you navigate open enrollment. If you have questions or concerns during open enrollment, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to assist you. And that's really what we're here for. There may be some situations where we need to do some research and we need to either reach out to the insurance company or reach out to another entity and confirm the information or get the answers. But either way, we can either answer the question right away or we can research it and get an answer back to you in a timely fashion. So to really bring us home to recap, we reviewed the differences between qualified life events and open enrollment windows and how to make sure that you are maximizing your open enrollment window. We also discussed the medical forecast and the importance of understanding how do I actually expect to use my insurance and how, what are my needs for this next coming year so that way I can match my insurance to those needs versus rather than vice versa. And then understand the plans and again, really just making sure that you're mindful of not falling into that trap of thinking that you need the lowest possible deductible when perhaps you need to be focusing on the out-of-pocket maximum or really understanding your actual needs as it pertains to accessing specialists or filling expensive medications or accessing wellness services, that sort of thing. We also touched on the important open enrollment tasks we need to make sure that we get done every year, making sure your information is accurate, updated, and everything is in order. And then we also reviewed how to get help during open enrollment and what resources are available to you. So that concludes today's presentation. I hope you found this information to be helpful. Again, really, this is designed for you to be able to really just I think I say prime the pumps. Make sure that you are in the mindset that you need to be for open enrollment. And if you have any questions or concerns, you are always welcome to reach out to us. We're happy to assist you. I hope you found this information to be helpful. And I just want to wish everyone a great day and a very happy open enrollment. Thanks so much.